Today's story is about a guy who came home early from a client meeting one Wednesday evening and made the critical mistake of stopping to listen at his own apartment door. What he heard was his girlfriend and her three best friends running through a full production plan: camera positions, shooting angles, backup escalation strategies, hashtag options. All of it designed to film him breaking down in public, for content. They had a script, a location, a time slot, and a contingency plan for if he didn't fall apart fast enough. What they didn't have was any plan for a guy who already knew everything going in. What he did next genuinely had me losing it. She staged a breakup, her friends watching. I didn't argue. I said, "Done. Enjoy your freedom." Their laughter died instantly. I came home early on a Wednesday, not something that usually happens with my schedule, but a client meeting wrapped up faster than expected, and I was back at my loft in Midtown Atlanta around 6:30 instead of 8. Nice building, converted industrial space, good natural light. I'd been there about 3 years and had probably never walked through that door before 7:30 in my life. I stepped off the elevator and started walking down the hall when I heard voices inside my apartment. Multiple voices. Amber's, and then 3 more I recognized immediately. Her friends Kayla, Tess, and Paige. The door was cracked open a few inches, which is how the sound was carrying out into the hallway. I almost announced myself. Almost. I wish I had, but I also genuinely don't. Kayla was talking. She had that tone she uses when she's decided she's running a meeting nobody actually called. "Okay, we're agreed. Saturday at Ponce City Market, around 2 p.m. Maximum foot traffic, plenty of witnesses." I went completely still in the hallway. Tess jumped in next, voice bright and excited. "I'll be at the next table filming from a side angle. Paige, you've got the head-on shot from the food stalls. We need at least 2 angles for editing options." Then Amber's voice. Quieter, more uncertain than the others. "What if he suspects something? He knows I don't usually go there for lunch." Paige already had the answer locked. "That's why you say you've been wanting to try the new crepe spot everyone's been posting about. Keep it spontaneous sounding. Cute and casual." Kayla slipped into that mentor tone she loves. "All right, here's the script again. You tell him you've been feeling disconnected, that you think you want different things in life. Keep it vague enough that he'll ask questions. That's when you drop the real line." "And then I say, 'I think we should take a permanent break?'" Amber asked. "Exactly." Tessa's voice practically bounced. "But here's the key. You have to stay calm while he falls apart. The contrast is everything. You composed, him desperate. That's what makes it shareable." My hands were forming fists at my sides, without me deciding to do that. Kayla kept going. "My last breakup video hit 2.3 million views. This one's going to be better because Cole isn't expecting anything." The genuine shock on his face? Pure gold. A pause. Then Amber, quietly. "I don't know if I can watch him actually suffer." Paige laughed it off. "You're not going to let him suffer. After a few days, you reveal it was a test of his devotion. Film the makeup moment, too. That's the sequel content. The whole he proved his love angle. People absolutely eat that up." "Exactly," Tess agreed. "You could gain at least 20,000 followers from the 2-part series. Maybe more if it really takes off." Kayla shifted into full coaching mode. "Trust me, every relationship needs this kind of test. If he really loves you, he'll fight for you. And if he doesn't fight hard enough, well, now you know the truth about how he actually feels." A pause. Amber's voice came out small. "But what if he just accepts it?" All 3 of them laughed. Actually laughed, like she'd said something ridiculous. "No man lets his girlfriend walk away in public without making a scene," Kayla said with total confidence. "Especially not somewhere like Ponce City Market on a Saturday afternoon. He'll beg. They always do. I've done this twice. Both times the guy completely fell apart. They can't help themselves." I stood in that hallway for another 30 seconds, listening to them refine every last detail. Camera angles, backup escalation if I didn't react the way they needed, hashtag options, editing strategy. These women were treating my relationship like a production schedule. They wanted to capture me falling apart on camera and monetize it. I quietly backed away, took the elevator down, and sat in my car with the engine off. A delivery truck pulled in. A couple walked past arm in arm. A door slammed somewhere above me. 20 minutes passed. The world kept moving while I just sat in it and let a plan form in the back of my head. They assumed I'd play the role they'd written for me. They were counting on me being predictable. I had news for them. Hold on. For anyone listening, that's me jumping in, not Cole. I need to flag something real quick. Kayla has run this exact scheme twice before. Twice. This isn't a misguided friend giving well-meaning bad advice. This is the executive producer of other people's heartbreak. She treats relationships like a recurring gig. She's got a whole catalog. Season 1, Season 2, and Amber's relationship is Episode 3. At this rate, she'll have an LLC and a production assistant by 2027. What's next? A masterclass called How to Film Your Friend's Emotional Damage for Brand Deals. Meanwhile, Cole is absorbing all of this from the hallway. And the most terrifying part? He already knows exactly what he's about to do. I drove to my sister Dana's place in Buckhead, maybe 25 minutes from Midtown, maybe 35 with evening traffic. I don't know. I wasn't checking the time. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without saying a word. I walked her through the whole thing, every detail I could remember. By the time I finished, Dana was pacing the kitchen with her arms crossed tight. I told you she was changing, that the influencer thing was turning her into someone else. I know. So what are you going to do? Give her exactly what she wants. She wants to break up. Fine, we're broken up. No questions, no fighting, no begging. Dana stopped pacing. In public? With the cameras running? Especially with cameras running. They want a show. They'll get one. Just not the show they planned. She studied me for a second. Cole, if you go through with this, the relationship is probably over for real. I'd already worked through that on the drive over. If Amber was willing to stage this whole thing, maybe it was already over, and neither of us wanted to say it first. Dana put her hand on my arm. You deserve better than this. I know that too. I drove home around 11:30. Amber was in bed scrolling her phone, probably drafting captions for content that didn't exist yet. She smiled when I walked in. Hey, you're home late. I told her the meeting ran long, and I'd stopped by Dana's afterward. She kissed me goodnight and went back to scrolling. Completely normal. Like she wasn't 3 days away from filming my public humiliation. I should mention something here. I'd been having quiet doubts about things for a few months before any of this. Not like I was miserable or counting down the days, but the last stretch had felt different between us. More performance, less actual connection. She was always half present, like she was watching our life through a viewfinder, instead of actually being in it. I'd even pulled up a few apartment listings a couple weeks back, just to see what was out there, just to have a contingency plan in the back of my mind. That part matters later. I lay in the dark that night thinking about the real moments we'd had, early on, before all of this. Then I thought about Saturday. They wanted to see how I'd react. They were about to find out. Thursday passed. Wait, no, I keep mixing this up. Thursday was when I first started noticing the rehearsing. Friday was the coffee conversation. Whatever. Amber was quieter than usual those 2 days, clearly running lines in her head. I noticed small things I'd ignored before. The way she angled herself toward the window when she was on her phone, like she was thinking about lighting. The way she practiced phrasing things before she said them out loud. Habits that made a lot more sense now. I thought about how long she'd been looking at our life together and seeing content instead of moments. How many times I'd told her something that happened at work and watched her eyes flicker, like she was deciding whether it was worth posting. I hadn't named it back then. I was naming it now. Friday morning, she brought it up over coffee. Nice and casual. Want to try that new crepe place at Ponce City Market tomorrow? Around 2? I pretended to think it over. Sure, sounds good. Her face brightened, but I caught the nerves running underneath it. She was definitely nervous, that little tell she has where her jaw tightens for a second before she smiles. That evening, I heard her in the bedroom, door barely cracked. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About us. About where we're headed. I think we want different things in life. Getting the delivery right. Getting the cadence down for the camera. Saturday morning, she took extra time getting ready. Deliberate effortlessness. An outfit that looked casual but photographed well. She was producing herself. We walked over to Ponce City Market just before 2, and the place was packed the way it always is on a weekend. Families, tourists, locals, vendors calling out specials over the crowd noise. A guy with an acoustic guitar was set up near the entrance, playing something I half recognized from the radio. I genuinely don't know why I remember that detail, but I do. I spotted the setup the second we walked in. Tess at a nearby table, phone propped on a small tripod aimed directly at the seats we were walking toward. Paige at the food stall counter, clearly not looking at the menu. 3 angles, exactly as planned. We sat down. Amber put her phone face down on the table, voice memo already running. We ordered. I got a ham and cheese crepe. She got strawberries and cream. Small talk while we waited. She kept stealing glances at Tess's table. The food arrived. I started eating. Then Amber took a slow, deliberate breath. Cole, I need to talk to you about something serious. I set down my fork, finished chewing, and looked at her with what I hoped appeared to be normal, polite attention. Sure, what's on your mind? I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About us. About where we're headed. Pause. I feel like we've fallen into a pattern, and I'm not sure we want the same things anymore. I looked at her steadily. Okay. She pressed on, right on script. I think I need to be true to myself. Honestly, this isn't working for me anymore. Perfect delivery. Calm, measured, composed. The strong woman making a difficult choice on her own terms. This was my cue. I was supposed to ask what I'd done wrong. Maybe reach across the table. Say something desperate about how much she meant to me. I nodded once. Okay. The word just sat there between us. Amber's carefully composed expression cracked slightly. Okay. If that's what you want, then I respect your decision. I took another bite of my crepe. You're not going to ask why? Or try to talk about this? I finished chewing, taking my time. You said this isn't working for you. I'm not going to try to convince you to stay in something that doesn't work for you. That wouldn't be fair to either of us. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Tess shift uncomfortably in her chair. The camera was rolling, but this wasn't the footage they needed. Amber glanced toward her, then back at me. But don't you want to fight for us? I set my fork down and looked at her directly. You just told me you think we want different things and that our relationship isn't working. What exactly would I be fighting for? Silence. The market kept its Saturday rhythm all around us. Vendors, shoppers, the hiss of espresso machines somewhere behind me, kids running past. But at our little table, nothing. I pulled out my wallet and set cash down. Enough for both meals and a generous tip. I'll get my stuff out of the apartment this week. You can keep the place since your name's on the lease. I'll transfer my half of this month's rent by Monday. Amber's eyes went wide. Wait, you're just accepting this? Just like that? I stood up and put my jacket on, taking my time with each button. When I looked at her again, I made sure my voice was clear. Loud enough for Tess's tripod. Loud enough for Paige at the food stall. Loud enough for the tables nearest to ours. Enjoy your freedom, Amber. And I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't hesitate. Didn't give them a single frame of the desperate, begging boyfriend they'd spent a week writing and rehearsing for. I walked out onto the street and kept going. The afternoon was warm and bright. I made it to Piedmont Park and found a bench near the lake. Watched some kids chase pigeons. Watched a guy throw a frisbee to his dog over and over. My phone stayed in my pocket. I just sat there and breathed. Pause. One word. That's Cole's entire response to a week of production planning. One word, and the whole operation caves in on itself. That's not a man giving up. That's a trapdoor opening under everything they built. They wanted the Breaking Bad emotional spiral, the desperation, the begging, the full meltdown, tears if they got lucky. What they got was a man who finished his food, left exact change, and walked out like he had a 3 o'clock appointment with his own dignity. If you're about to say he should have fought harder, hold that thought. Because what happens next completely changes how you look at all of this. About 20 minutes later, I called Dana. How'd it go? I said okay and walked out. She laughed despite herself. She's going to call you. I know. I stayed at the park another hour, then called my friend Nate. You busy? I need help moving. What happened at the market after I left? I got most of this from Paige months later, once things had settled and she was willing to talk. Amber sat frozen in her chair for almost a full minute. Then Tess rushed over, Paige right behind her, Qley coming in from wherever she'd positioned herself to watch. What was that? Qley kept saying. What just happened? Amber just stared at the empty chair across from her. He left. He just agreed and left. Tess scrolled through the footage. This is unusable. He was calm, rational. There's nothing here. Paige checked her angle. Same problem. He looks completely reasonable. She looks cold. Kayla watched the playback on Tess's phone. Then quietly, he talked about moving out like he was relieved. That hit Amber hard, apparently. No, he loves me. He was supposed to fight for me. And Tess said, flat and final, he didn't. We can't post this. It completely backfires. Meanwhile, I was already back at the apartment with Nate and Dana, loading boxes, while Amber was still at the market processing what had gone wrong. I'd been thinking about moving for a while anyway. Had quietly looked at some listings, just to know what my options were, just to have a plan in the back pocket. So that morning, before everything went down, I texted a realtor I know asking about short-term furnished rentals with immediate availability. He came through same day, with a place in Old Fourth Ward. Smaller than my loft. Exposed brick, east-facing windows. It felt honest in a way things hadn't felt in a long time. We worked fast. By 6 p.m., everything was loaded in. Dana looked around the new place and put a hand on my shoulder. You okay? Yeah, I genuinely was. I texted Amber, I've moved out. Left my key on the kitchen counter. Rent transfer hits Monday. Take care. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then my phone rang. I sent it to voicemail. Nate ordered pizza, and the 3 of us sat on the floor surrounded by boxes while I walked through the whole story from the beginning. Somewhere in the middle of it, Nate set his slice down. 3 cameras. That was the actual plan. Yep. And you just said okay and walked out. Yep. He laughed hard for a full minute. I wish I could have been there for their faces. My phone kept buzzing through dinner. I didn't check it. Sunday morning. Strange light coming through unfamiliar windows. But peaceful. No walking on eggshells, no tension in the air sitting on everything like a second coat of paint. Just quiet. I made coffee, sat by the east window, and watched a bird hit the glass, bounce off, and fly away like nothing happened. Stayed there a minute with that, then went back to the client report I'd been putting off. Amber called around 11. I answered. Can we please talk in person? I don't think that's a good idea. You were clear about ending things. I think maybe I was hasty. I was stressed. I was emotional. Stress made you decide we want different things in life. That sounds like something worth thinking carefully about. What if I said I made a mistake? Then I'd say you need to be sure about what you actually want before saying it out loud. Ending things and trying to restart on a whim isn't something I can build on. It wasn't a whim. I'm telling you I was wrong. Yesterday you were certain enough to end things in a public place. Today you're certain you were wrong. How do I know which version is the real one? Silence. Then, quietly, because I love you. You loved me yesterday too. Didn't change what you did. So you're just done. 2.5 years and you're done. You were done yesterday. I'm accepting the decision you made. She hung up. Yo, time out. That's me, not Cole. I need to break something down here because it's genuinely textbook. She didn't want to break up with him. She wanted him to fight to keep her. The second he didn't, something short-circuited. Now she's re-explaining her own feelings like he misunderstood, except he understood perfectly. She said the words, he accepted them. Game over. Here's the thing about people who run these tests. They're not actually looking for answers. They already decided what the story is. They just want confirmation. Cole refused to be a character in that story. And now the whole production is coming apart in real time. Monday. From what Paige eventually told me, Amber's friends met at a coffee shop in East Atlanta to do damage control. Kayla wanted to cut the footage somehow, find a way to make me look cold or emotionally checked out. Tess pointed out I wasn't cold, just composed. Paige said the audio made me sound completely reasonable. They sat there staring at footage they couldn't post for the better part of an hour. We should just tell Amber to move on, Tess finally said. If Cole really loved her, he would have fought harder, Kayla insisted. Paige looked at her. Or, he's smart enough not to play our game. First real crack in the group. Amber kept texting throughout the day. She suggested we sit down somewhere and talk things through together. I told her she'd ended the relationship. There was no we left to talk anything through. She brought up our trip to Savannah in October, something we'd been planning for a while. I told her she'd have plenty of freedom to make new plans now. That evening, another message. Everyone thinks you're being childish. I typed back, by everyone you mean the friends who staged the breakup. Their opinion on maturity is noted. She went quiet after that one. Tuesday, I settled into the new routine, focused on client work. The quiet was genuinely nice, clean, productive. Wednesday evening, a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. Amber. Dana had given her my new address despite me specifically asking her not to. We were going to have a proper conversation about that. I opened the door but stayed in the doorway. I need to tell you something, she said. Eyes red. I'm listening. She glanced past me into the apartment, hoping I'd invite her in. When I didn't move, she took a breath. Saturday wasn't entirely real. What does that mean? It was supposed to be... She struggled with how to frame it. My friends thought it would be a good way to test whether you'd fight for the relationship. I kept my face neutral. Test? You tested me. It sounds bad when you say it that way. How should it sound? Her voice rose slightly. You were supposed to show me you cared. You were supposed to react. Show some emotion. Act like losing me actually mattered. A neighbor's door cracked open down the hall and shut quickly. I stepped fully into the hallway and closed my apartment door behind me. This conversation wasn't happening in my space. You want to know what mattered to me? Being with someone genuine, someone who communicates honestly, someone who doesn't treat our relationship like a content opportunity for internet strangers. It wasn't about content. You had 3 camera angles set up. You scripted what you were going to say. You chose the busiest time at the most crowded spot on purpose for maximum impact. Tell me which part of that read is wrong. She went quiet, hands twisting together. A mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What you did was a calculated decision to manipulate me for engagement metrics. Her face went pale. How do you know about the content? I heard everything Wednesday night. The planning session, the camera positions, the script about you staying composed while I fell apart, the backup escalation if I didn't react the way you needed. All of it. I looked at her evenly. I knew before you even suggested Ponce City Market. She staggered back slightly against the hallway wall. You knew the whole time. You knew. And you still let me? You wanted to test me. I showed you exactly who I am. Someone who won't perform for an audience. Someone who respects a stated decision, even a fake one. And someone who doesn't beg people to stay when they've already chosen to go. Tears were coming. I wasn't done yet. Words have meanings, Amber. You can't say you're ending a relationship and expect me to ignore it because you didn't really mean it. That's not how things work. We can fix this. I'll post an apology. I'll explain it was staged, that you manipulated your boyfriend for content and engagement. Is that the video? She flinched at the word manipulated. I softened my voice but kept it firm. Here's what I know about you now. When it came down to a choice between the relationship and your online image, you chose the image. When it came down to real friends or the influencer circle, you chose the circle. When it came down to genuine content versus manufactured drama, you chose the drama. Every single time it actually mattered, you chose the performance over the person. That's not fair. You had 3 camera angles set up to film my humiliation. You rehearsed your lines. You picked the peak crowd window on purpose. Tell me which part of that is unfair. The hallway was quiet. Just the low hum of the building's heating system. I deserve someone who doesn't need to test my love, I said. Someone who believes me when I show up. Someone who wouldn't hurt me to impress strangers she's never actually met. I do believe you. I know you love me. If you knew that, you wouldn't have needed to test it. I reached back and opened my door. So that's it? Her voice cracked. We're just over. We were over Saturday at 2 p.m. when you told me this wasn't working for you. The only difference now is you understand why. I went inside and closed the door quietly. She stood in the hallway for a few minutes. Then I heard the elevator. Hold on. That's me again. I need to just say something about that hallway scene, because people sleep on this part. Cole could have gone full scorched earth in there. Could have yelled every detail through the door. Could have made a whole production out of it. Instead, he stepped into the hallway, closed the door behind him, and laid out every specific detail of their Wednesday planning session. Camera angles, the backup escalation plan, the hashtag discussion, all of it. in the exact same calm, level voice. No drama, no performance. He gave her the same dignity she'd failed to give him, and it absolutely wrecked her. The most devastating thing you can do to someone who planned your emotional collapse is to simply never have one. Thursday, lunch with Nate at a patio spot on the north side of Piedmont Park. Good weather, good shade. I was mid-sentence explaining a client situation when I noticed Qley walking past on the sidewalk with two women I didn't recognize. She spotted me, stopped, and in what I can only describe as a spectacular moment of badly timed confidence, she walked directly over to our table. "Cole, surprised to see you out and about." That forced casual tone. "Thought you'd be somewhere wallowing." Nate set his fork down and watched without saying anything. "Why would I be wallowing?" I asked. "Your girlfriend just broke up with you. Most guys would be devastated, crying into their coffee or whatever." "Ex-girlfriend," I said, "and she made her choice. I respected it. That's what adults do." Qley turned slightly toward the nearby tables, going for an audience. I recognized the move immediately. This is exactly the problem with guys today. No passion, no fight. Just give up at the first sign of trouble. Whatever happened to romance? I let her finish. Then I set my water glass down carefully. "Is that the story you're all going with now? That I gave up?" She crossed her arms. "It's the truth. Amber wanted you to fight for her, and you walked away." "The truth," I said, making sure my voice carried, "is that you convinced Amber to stage a fake breakup, film it from 3 camera angles, and post it online as content. The truth is, you scripted what she should say, coached her on staying composed while I quote-unquote fell apart, and planned the whole thing like you were producing a reality TV episode." Qley's face went pale. Her two friends exchanged a look. "The truth is, I overheard your entire planning session Wednesday evening, a week ago. Every word, the camera angles, the backup plan to escalate if I didn't react the way you needed, the hashtag discussion, all of it." Nate was looking at her like she was something he'd stepped in. "You actually set up cameras, 3 of them." I kept my eyes on Qley. "Ponce City Market, Saturday at 2 p.m. Tess at a side table with a tripod. Paige at the food stalls. Multiple angles for editing options." Qley backed away from the table, voice dropping. She'd realized her mistake. "This is a private matter." "You made it public the moment you set up cameras in a crowded market," I said. "You just didn't get the public reaction you planned for. You wanted a desperate man begging his girlfriend not to leave. You got a man with enough self-respect to accept someone's stated decision and walk away with his head up." She retreated across the patio to a table on the far side. Her friends followed. I could see them whispering urgently, glancing back in my direction. I returned to my menu. My hands were shaking slightly under the table from the adrenaline, but I don't think it showed above it. Nate waited a beat. "Dude, I know. That was ice cold. That was honest. There's a difference." Wait, me again, real quick. I need you to clock exactly what just happened." Qley walked over uninvited, audience available, and basically demanded Cole explain why he didn't perform on cue. That's Cersei Lannister energy. She strutted into a situation thinking she held all the cards and handed Cole the microphone instead. He didn't raise his voice. He laid out the production schedule from their Wednesday planning session, in order calmly, while phones at nearby tables started appearing on laps. She came over to shame him for having self-respect. She left as the headline. And speaking of headlines, the internet is about to find out exactly what went down here. Final update. By Friday evening, a short clip was making rounds on TikTok. Someone at one of the nearby patio tables had been recording the exchange with Qley, and it got out with the caption, "Man exposes influencers who staged a fake breakup for content." About 430,000 views by the time I saw it. The comments were doing the rest, tracking down accounts, finding Qley's Instagram, finding Amber's page, leaving their collective opinion across both of them. I didn't follow it closely. That wasn't the point of any of this. But I noticed when Amber texted me Saturday morning. My dad saw the video. He called. He's so disappointed in me. He said he didn't raise me to treat people like props. He's right. Then a few minutes later, "I know I don't deserve a response. I know I destroyed everything. But I need you to know I understand what I did now. I hurt you. I disrespected you. I chose validation from strangers over someone who actually loved me. You were right about everything. I was working through some client reports. I read the messages, set my phone down, and kept working. An hour later, I've cut off Kayla, Tess, and Paige completely. I'm done trying to build an influencer career, taking down all my social media except a private account for actual friends and family. That one got my attention. A real step if she meant it. One more message after that. You said you deserved someone who doesn't need to test your love. You're right. I hope you find her. I hope she never makes the mistakes I made. I sat with that one for a while. 2 weeks later, Amber reached out asking if we could meet just once. She suggested the cafe at the High Museum of Art. Neutral ground, public but quiet. I almost said no, but something in how she worded it made me reconsider, so I went. She was already there when I arrived, and she looked different. Less put together in that careful, deliberate way I'd grown used to. No ring light makeup, no curated outfit designed to look effortlessly casual. Just jeans and a plain sweater, like herself more or less. She slid an envelope across the table as I sat down. Inside was a check for $3,000. What's this? Brand deal money. 6 months of it. Some of those deals came from posting about our relationship. She kept her eyes on the table. It's not right for me to keep it. You take it, or I donate it. Whatever you think is right. I just can't keep profiting from something I corrupted. I studied her for a moment. She looked tired, but there was something clearer in her eyes than I'd seen in a long time. More like who she actually was before all of this started. I also needed to say this to you in person and not through a screen. She paused. When my dad called after seeing that video, it wasn't what he said. It was the way he said it. Like he didn't even recognize the person he was looking at anymore. Her voice dropped. He asked me what I thought would happen. Whether I thought you'd just forgive me and we'd move on like none of this happened. What did you tell him? I told him no. I told him you were too smart for that. Too self-respecting. She looked up at me. I meant it. She told me she was moving to Charlotte. Her cousin had offered her a job with her catering business there. She needed to get out of Atlanta, out of the whole scene that had made her think any of this was acceptable. I told her that sounded like a solid plan. I did love you, she said. Underneath all the performance and the content chasing and the need for outside validation, I genuinely loved you. I know that, but I can't trust it anymore. No, you can't. She nodded, and I watched her work to keep herself together. I learned something, though. You can't test love. You either trust it or you don't. And if you don't trust it, you never really had it to begin with. She stood up, gathered her things, and left. I sat alone for a few more minutes. Then I photographed the check and looked up a local organization working with domestic abuse survivors. Real people dealing with actual relationship damage, not manufactured drama. Donated the full amount to them. Felt right. I walked home from the museum. The fall air was sharp and the trees along the park were just starting to turn. I thought about the last 2.5 years, not with any particular feeling, just kind of walking through it like you'd walk through a building you used to work in. Some rooms looked familiar, some looked smaller than you remembered. I don't know if she actually followed through on getting off social media. I hope she did. 3 months later, December. I was at the ice rink at Centennial Olympic Park with Dana and her 2 kids. Christmas lights strung up everywhere. City Hall glowing a few blocks away. That clean cold that Atlanta only gets a handful of times each winter. My niece was pulling on my hands, demanding I race her around the rink for the 3rd time in a row while I pretended to be too winded to keep up. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hi, this is Paige. I was one of Amber's friends. I don't know if you remember me. I wanted to apologize for my role in what happened. It was cruel and I should have said no from the start. I hope you're doing well. I read it twice, then typed back, appreciate the apology. Good luck with whatever comes next. Pocketed my phone. Dana skated up beside me a minute later. Who was that? Someone figuring out that actions have consequences. She smiled. And what about you? What did you take away from all of this? I looked around at the rink, the lights, the city, the 2 kids zooming past us. I learned I don't need to perform for anybody's approval, I said. I learned my instincts are worth trusting, and I learned that sometimes the strongest move you've got is just saying okay and walking out the door. No regrets on any of it, not even close. I took my niece's hand and we skated off into the evening. Look, Cole's not a saint. He was apartment hunting for weeks before any of this went down, which means he'd already had one foot out the door in his own way. Worth noting. But when someone sets up 3 cameras to film your humiliation, scripts your partner's lines, and coaches her on staying composed while you fall apart, that's not a relationship problem anymore. That's a production. And the right response to being cast in someone else's content without your consent is exactly what he did. Close the script and walk off set. Then donate the check to people who actually need it. Drop a comment. Which moment had you most fired up? Not subscribed yet? Hit that button. New stories every day. New stories every day. New stories every day. New stories every day. New stories.